Picture this. At its peak, Blockbuster Video operated over 9,000 stores across the globe. Friday nights in America practically revolved around those blue and yellow aisles. They generated over $5.9 billion in revenue in 2004 alone. And then, in barely 6 years, they filed for bankruptcy. Most people blame Netflix. Most people are wrong. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through the 5 fatal flaws that killed Blockbuster from the inside out, exposed through their own financial filings, boardroom decisions, and one of the most catastrophic rejected deals in corporate history. These aren't opinions. These are the receipts. If you want to understand how a $60 billion industry titan destroyed itself, you're in the right place. Let's break it down. Fatal flaw. Number 1, the late fee addiction that poisoned everything. Most people thought Blockbuster made its money from movie rentals. That's technically true, but here's the financial reality they didn't advertise. By 2000, late fees alone accounted for roughly $800 million of Blockbuster's annual revenue. That's not a side hustle. That was nearly 16% of total revenue, baked directly into their operating model. The board knew customers hated it. Internal surveys showed late fees were the #1 complaint year after year. But here's the kicker. Removing them would blow a hole in the income statement so large, Wall Street would panic. So they kept squeezing. They penalized loyal customers to prop up quarterly earnings. And what happened? Customers didn't complain. They left. When Netflix launched its no late fee subscription model in 1999, it wasn't genius. It was the most obvious response to a problem Blockbuster refused to fix. Blockbuster didn't lose to innovation. They lost to their own greed. But if that revenue dependency shocked you, wait until you see what their leadership did next. Fatal flaw number 2. The deal they turned down that changed everything. You've probably heard this one, but the details are worse than the headline suggests. In the year 2000, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph flew to Dallas and offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. Blockbuster's CEO at the time, John Antioco, reportedly laughed them out of the room. $50 million. Netflix is now worth over $150 billion. But here's what most people don't tell you. Antioco wasn't being arrogant for no reason. At that point, Netflix was hemorrhaging cash. They lost $57 million that year alone. On paper, the rejection made sense. The real failure wasn't saying no in 2000. It was saying no every single year after that. Blockbuster had multiple opportunities to acquire or partner with streaming ventures between 2001 and 2007. They passed every time. The board was fixated on protecting their physical retail margins, which sat around 66% on rentals. And let's be real, they couldn't imagine a world where people wouldn't drive to a store. That lack of imagination cost shareholders everything. And if a $50 million mistake sounds bad, the next one makes it look like pocket change. Fatal flaw. Number 3, the Viacom debt trap nobody talks about. The corporate report said Blockbuster was a standalone entertainment powerhouse. But what the board didn't tell you is that Blockbuster spent most of the 1990s as a subsidiary of Viacom, and that relationship left permanent financial scars. When Viacom spun off Blockbuster in 2004, they didn't set it free. They saddled it with approximately $1 billion in debt. Blockbuster entered the public market already limping. Their debt-to-equity ratio was a disaster. And instead of using their remaining capital to invest in digital infrastructure, they funneled cash into maintaining over 9,000 physical locations, each one bleeding rent, labor, and inventory costs. According to their 2005 annual report, store operating expenses consumed over $2.5 billion per year. They were spending money they didn't have to maintain an empire that was already shrinking. Bottom line, Blockbuster wasn't killed by Netflix. It was strangled by a balance sheet it inherited from its own parent company. And if you think inheriting bad debt was their worst mistake, wait until you hear how they sabotaged the one thing that was actually saving them. If you're finding this financial breakdown valuable, hit that like button to help other viewers understand these corporate truths. Fatal flaw number 4, the Blockbuster inline sabotage. Most people think Blockbuster never even tried to compete with Netflix online. That's completely false. Blockbuster actually built a credible Netflix competitor. Blockbuster Online launched in 2004, and by 2006, it had attracted over 2 million subscribers. John Antioco personally championed it. He cut late fees and costing the company around $200 million in short-term revenue, and invested heavily in the digital platform. It was working. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings later admitted in interviews that Blockbuster Online was the biggest competitive threat Netflix ever faced. So what happened? The board fired the guy making it work. Activist investor Carl Icahn, who had taken a significant stake in Blockbuster, pushed out Antioco in 2007 and replaced him with Jim Keyes, a convenience store executive from 7-Eleven. Keyes immediately slashed the online budget, redirected funds back to physical stores, and killed the momentum. This decision cost investors billions. The dirty secret of Blockbuster's collapse isn't that they ignored digital. It's that they started winning the digital race and their own boardroom pulled the plug. You won't believe what fatal flaw number 5 reveals about their final days. Fatal flaw number 5. The bankruptcy math that proves they did this to themselves. You probably heard people say the DVD rental market dried up and Blockbuster had nowhere to go. That's a convenient excuse, but the numbers tell a completely different story. Blockbuster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in September of 2010, carrying approximately $900 million in debt. Their revenue had dropped from $5.9 billion in 2004 to less than $3 billion. They closed over 5,000 stores in the final 3 years. Approximately 60,000 employees lost their jobs. And here's the thing, if the market was still there, the home entertainment industry was booming. Americans spent over $18 billion on home video in 2010. The money didn't disappear. It went to Netflix, Redbox, and eventually streaming platforms that did what Blockbuster refused to do. No, adapt. Dish Network bought Blockbuster's remaining assets for $320 million at auction. $320 million for a company that was once valued at over $8 billion. Today, exactly one Blockbuster store remains open in Bend, Oregon. It operates as a novelty, not a business. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more critical financial insights. So here's what Blockbuster really teaches us. It wasn't Netflix that killed them. It was $800 million in late fee addiction they couldn't quit. It was a $50 million deal they laughed at. It was $1 billion in Viacom debt they never recovered from. It was an online platform their own board sabotaged. And it was $900 million in final debt that buried what was left. 5 fatal flaws, every single one self-inflicted. The lesson here isn't about movies or streaming, it's about what happens when leadership protects the old model instead of building the next one. Hit like if you found this breakdown useful and subscribe to Bankruptcy Breakdown now. I'll continue to guide you through the real facts of corporate finance, saving you from costly mistakes.